I start every deep dive looking at the title, and Reverse Mountain is honestly no different. Now, for me, reverse is not just describing the water flowing upward, but I think it's also describing a shift in how the world operates and is going to operate from now on. So in East Blue, there were moments when nature seemed to intervene to help Luffy along his path, and I think the most recent being in Loguetown, obviously when the scaffold was struck by lightning and saved Luffy's life. But Reverse Mountain really kind of flips that in that everyone is now at the mercy of nature. So we have the currents are forcing this movement upward, all of the seas are converging into this single path, and there's no navigation here for anyone. You don't choose your direction, you are being carried, and nature is not helping you. And then we meet Laboon, which is where a really interesting reversal happens if we connect Laboon to traditional depictions of whales in literature and culture. Now, whales are often seen as either monsters of the sea or godlike beings, but their purpose is almost always defined in relation to humans. What can they do to humans? What can they do for humans? So, for instance, we have the biblical story of Jonah and the whale, where Jonah is really running away, and the whale removes him and forces him into isolation where he has to repent, he reflects, he confronts his failure, and then he realigns himself with what he is supposed to do. So the whale does not change, but rather creates the conditions for Jonah to change. And in Pinocchio, we have a similar function of a whale, in which being inside the whale allows Pinocchio to mature. So Pinocchio kind of went off on his own, and Geppetto went to go find him and ends up getting eaten by the whale. But Pinocchio goes after his father. He tries to save him. He goes inside of the whale. He takes responsibility and he devises a plan to save his father. And he ends up being more mature by the end. So again, the whale itself is unchanged and is instead existing to support this growth of the characters. And of course we have Moby Dick. I think this is the classic one that people think about when they think about a big giant whale in the ocean. But in Moby Dick, the whale is the object of obsession. And the only transformation that happens is within the people who are pursuing Moby Dick. So of all of these examples, the traditional structure is really whale changes people, but Reverse Mountain reverses that. Laboon is not transforming anyone, and instead he is the one that needs to change. He is crashing his head into the red line. He is not guiding anyone. He is just stuck in the past and is not able to move forward from that. Now, instead of helping Luffy and the Straw Hats, Laboon is the one that receives help from Luffy and the Straw Hats. And this really marks, I think, another kind of reversal, which is the characters themselves. Now, earlier arcs of the East Blue Saga show the growth of the characters as they learn more about themselves and each other, but in Reverse Mountain, we are not watching the characters grow. We are instead looking back and seeing who these characters are at their core. Now, Luffy's actions with Laboon are not new. They echo what we have already been shown about Luffy and who he is, even as far back as Romance Dawn, when he protected Koby from basically being in association with the pirates. So he wanted Koby to be able to fulfill his dream of becoming a marine, and so he kind of faked a fight in order to get away from Luffy and Zoro and not be associated with them and lose his dream of becoming a marine. So Reverse Mountain is really making us look backwards. And instead of asking who are they becoming, we are instead shown who they've always been. I want to talk about Luffy's actions with Laboon in relation to Miss Wednesday and Mr. Nine. And I want to tie this back to Moby Dick. Now in Moby Dick, Ahab nails a doubloon to the mast for the person who is able to spot Moby Dick. So whoever spots Moby Dick is going to get this doubloon. Now, this doubloon, this is a coin, and it has 3 peaks of the Andes Mountains. And what's really interesting is that each of these characters in the book interprets this coin very differently. Now, similar to this doubloon, which I also think it's funny that doubloon sounds like Laboon, Laboon himself has different meanings assigned to him. So to Luffy and the Straw Hats, he is someone in need of help. To Crocus, he is a responsibility. And for the bounty hunters, he is a resource. They want him for his meat. And of course, we have that symbolism of the mountains on the doubloons themselves, because here the mountain is the gateway to the Grand Line. Now, my final thought is about the symbolism of the sea. Now, as we first enter Reverse Mountain in the beginning of the arc, we see these sea creatures called Neptunians being mentioned. And in Roman mythology, Neptune is the god that rules the sea. Now, he is positioned between his brothers Jupiter, the god of the sky, and Pluto, god of the underworld. So if we see this in relation to the other gods, the sea becomes this liminal space. This is an in-between. So at Reverse Mountain, we are really between worlds, but we are being forced forward and upward, and we are no longer in control. And as we know, what goes up must come down. So the real question that I have is, what kind of world are we being sent into? And this makes me really excited to start the next arc, which I'm going to do immediately. So let me know if you like this deep dive, and of course I will make more. They might not be as fast as I want to make them because I have a lot of other readings that I'm trying to do, but I do absolutely love One Piece. I love this arc, and I cannot wait to see what lies ahead for the Straw Hats in the next arc.